Steel Curtain Network.
Por Jorgito! Going down! Najee Harris! DJ Watt!
What's up, Steeler fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. I almost forgot to start the show. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Brian Davis. The triumphant trio is back to, well, we've been here. We're ready to give you week one. My gosh, it is great to be back with the regular season. Dave Schofield, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's good to be here. Just so everyone knows, during the regular season, this is when we expect to go. We're looking at a 7 p.m. Pittsburgh Standard Time. And this is me actually not referring to my podcast on Thursday mornings, that we'll be going because it seems like it's a good time. We can do the show. It's late enough, but if you're someone who wants to tune into Thursday Night Football, which begins tonight, you'll still be able to do that.
Absolutely. Brian Davis, welcome to the show.
I am so glad to be here. At times, I never think I'm going to be here because I'm a technical disaster.
It's funny. He's out on his little porch. I can hear crickets. It's like B. Holly and the crickets right now.
Oh, is it that bad?
I don't hear the crickets. Well, if I hear crickets, because I thought they were at my house, not because I thought they're coming through my headphones.
All right. Hey, if we're nothing, we're professional. So here we go. Let's get started with this podcast. We are getting you ready for Steelers Falcons week one. And this is something that we've talked about a lot. I want to talk about some storylines, and I want to get some storylines out of the way before we get to the injury report, because there's a lot of news involving the injury report, but we'll get there. I want to talk about storylines in and of itself heading into this game. There are a lot of storylines between the Falcons and the Steelers, whether it's Arthur Smith and his former team, a lot of turnover on these rosters. I wrote this article again for SteelCurtainNetwork.com. It ran on Thursday morning. It was about how there's a lot of unknown with both of these teams. Dave, when you think about the unknown component, the preseason that wasn't really for the starters of the Atlanta Falcons, for the offense that everyone's saying, I listened to Dale Lawley and Matt Williamson today when I was cleaning up dishes, talking about how the offense that you saw in the preseason is not the Steelers offense you're going to see when it matters most. This whole notion of you haven't seen it yet, how much does that play into the actual game, in your opinion?
It's huge because we don't know what to expect. We really don't. I mean, you could think that it's going to be the typical Steelers offense where they struggle and the defense has to carry the weight and everything. That's kind of to be expected as you saw through the preseason, but I really don't believe that's the Steelers offense. And it's our own KT Smith that has me convinced. And the reason he has me convinced is when he said, you see all this pre-snap motion and everything the Steelers were doing at training camp when he was there. And then you get into the preseason and there was next to none. So it goes to show you that there were things that they were doing and getting ready for that they just weren't doing in their preseason games. Then, turn it around to what to expect from Atlanta. There's nothing you could take from them. My goodness. I was wondering what they're going to do. I'm glad Coach Tomlin talked about it on Tuesday. You kind of got to look at the LA Rams because the offensive coordinator, who the Steelers had interviewed for their coordinator job too, the offensive coordinator was the passing game coordinator for the Rams, but he's never called plays. Kirk Cousins has never taken a snap in an Atlanta uniform. There's a lot they have to be questioning as well. So as much as we're not sure, I think Falcons fans should even be a little bit more on edge.
Brian, what's your take on this?
Well, I'm thinking that the preseason is becoming obsolete. I was talking to a Ravens fan today, and she was like,
Why?
You know what? Well, it's my boss.
Okay.
So,
good answer.
But she was talking about how she doesn't know what to expect from them because she hasn't seen too much and worry about their offensive line and worried about this and that. And it's funny, there's a lot of fan bases that I don't think Ravens fans should worry way too much, but there's a lot of fan bases that don't know what they're going to see because preseason is never going to be the same like it was before when there was 4 games, something we've known most of our football life watching. So, if they go down to 2, it's going to be even more unpredictable what you're going to see. Yeah, of course, you've got to disguise things. You don't want to show everything off, put anything on tape. And there's so many things now that people are expecting of the Steelers and say, "Oh, this offense looks like garbage." Save that until after you see the full 11.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, to plug the Let's Ride podcast for Friday, I have the Behind Enemy Lines segment where Scott Kennedy of Fans First Sports Network joins to talk about his take on the Atlanta Falcons, and he covers the Falcons for us. And he's pretty confident in what the Falcons have, both on offense and on defense. And he mentioned how they're riddled with top draft picks. They have a very strong offensive line. The defensive front is strong. They have a good safety duo in Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons. And so then last night I was invited to the Heavy Hitters podcast, which this is just a random invite. And I said, sure, I'll do it. And I was there with 4 Falcon fans, and they're very confident as well. Like, they think that the Falcons are vastly improved. And the whole time I keep thinking, but how do you know? Like Scott Kennedy is basing this off of reports from a joint practice and a Falcons versus Falcons scrimmage. I get it. And it's something, but it's not in game, or as Mike Tomlin would say, in stadium repetitions. And so I think that if there's I don't know what the line is on the first quarter, but I would take the under hard. Whatever the first quarter, I would take the under. I think both teams are going to be very safe. It's going to be a feeling out period. But then again, at the same time, it could also be, hey, bombs away. Let's see if we can shock them and really jumpstart this thing. Brian, what did you want to say?
I listened to the Falcons preview on our Falcons affiliate with Scott and his partners. And I got to tell you, yeah, they were not critical of the Steelers, but they basically, the Falcons fans, and I hope the team feels the same way, because they feel like they're going into playing a team that's complete garbage. And I hope they come in overconfident, because right now, this is a situation where you have the Steelers right now. They might be underdogs on paper, but they're underdogs based on what you saw in the preseason. And just like we talked about for the last 7 minutes, nobody saw the real thing in the preseason.
Yeah. Dave, anything else to mention?
Well, of course the Falcons are going to come in confident that they think that they have something going on. They had an absolute disaster at quarterback last year. Boy, that kind of sounds familiar, but theirs was worse. Yeah. And then they go and they spend the big money on an injured quarterback that has won like one playoff game in his career, and is actually 2 months older than the one that they say is old and washed up for the Steelers. That I'm sure we're going to talk about him more when we talk about the injury report. Yeah. But of course the Falcons fans are going to feel that way. They haven't had a winning record since 2017. That's the last time they've been in the playoffs. I mean, when that's how you are, next year's always your year. Next year's always your year, because you haven't won. I mean, my goodness, the last 6 seasons of the Atlanta Falcons are brought to you by the number 7. That's how many wins they've had, 5 out of the last 6 years. And the other one was only 4. So that's why they're confident. And I don't blame them. They should be looking up. This probably is one of their better rosters. But did they really get themselves ready to go to hit the ground running in week 1? That's the big question.
It is. And it's going to be really interesting. And we're going to talk about everything from the injury report. We're going to talk about matchups that we're looking forward to seeing, keys to victory. Obviously, we're going to have over-under. But before we do that, I want to take a quick break, and I want to have a word from our sponsors at DraftKings. They've been kind enough to sponsor us for the first 5 weeks, hoping that we can get your help to make it not just 5 weeks, but a season-long endeavor by downloading the Pick 6 app. In case you've never heard of it, it's a special app, the Pick 6 DraftKings app. Use the code Curtin, bet $5, get $50 in free plays. That expires on the 19th of September. So don't wait around. Get it done. Try it out. Again, Pick 6 app. We'll be right back after this break. All right, we are back. Thank you all for being patient. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring the Steel Curtain Network. Let's talk about the injury report, because that's where we have to go next. I mean, the storylines are the storylines. The unknown is that just unknown. And then all of a sudden Thursday comes and everyone sees it going across their Twitter feeds and across the news cycle. And that is what? Russell Wilson was limited. Now, let's first and foremost, and I'll go ahead and before we get your opinions on everything, And before Dave dives into the rest of the injury report, we're going to focus on this injury first. Let's talk about some important factors here. Mike Tomlin was called to the media as expected, and he did answer questions about Russell Wilson and his calf injury. And they asked him, did it happen in practice? He just said he was limited. Did they think it's serious? He said no. Is he confident in Justin Fields if he's called into action on Sunday? Absolutely. I thought what was the most interesting, because Mike Tomlin answered every question the way I thought. The most interesting thing to me was an interview at Van Jefferson's.
Jefferson.
Yes, Chris Adamski of Trib Live or Pittsburgh Tribune Review interviewed Van Jefferson, and he's not the only person there. It's just the Twitter feed that I saw it from. And everyone's like, hey, Van, like, what did you think about Russell Wilson? And he's like, yeah, that good practice. And you guys think, well, he was limited. He said, really? He said, yeah. He's like, Coach Tomlin just told us it was because of a calf strain. He's like, oh, okay. I didn't know that. So yeah, you'll have to talk to Coach about that. But I mean, he looked okay. So that's interesting to me as well, because now you're getting this other perspective of a receiver who didn't even know that the quarterback, who he probably worked with the entire practice, was deemed limited. So first and foremost, Dave, when you saw the news, what were your thoughts?
That this is another one of those big unknown things. Exactly what you're talking about with the Van Jefferson thing. Could it be, oh no, they really slow played Russell Wilson? Maybe he woke up and the calf was an issue after practice yesterday, and it was a big problem and they're really concerned about it. Or it really wasn't much of anything and no one even really noticed and it's actually going to be fine. That's a wide range you can have in there. That's a huge range. So really, it's if you're someone who likes to overreact, then you can completely overreact to this. If you're someone who likes to say, nah, everything's fine and sunshine and rainbows, you can say, you know what, it's going to be all right. Both of you can actually be fine in the moment. It's really going to come down to what's going tomorrow. How you got to take it. It is one of the things of like, of course, this is going to happen. Here we go again. What's going on? But I'm not. Tomorrow is when I'll ultimately worry about it based on what happens there.
Friday will be telling. Brian, what was your thoughts when you saw about Russell Wilson?
I didn't even think about it. I thought, all right, he's had calf issues. That's the thing. And then I'm thinking, whoever starts is the one who's ready. I don't expect the person that, I mean, if Russell Wilson starts in this game, then I'm confident that he's ready. Just for Dave and Jeff, you just talked about the confidence that they have in Justin Fields too. But the bottom line to it is they're going to be confident in whoever they put out there. And this is the rare situation for the Steelers where they probably feel like they're fine either way. And they're not like that. They haven't been like that in past years.
Yeah. Brian, quick question. Mike Tomlin said he's extremely confident if Justin Fields gets called into action. Are you echoing that sentiment?
Yeah. You have to be. Okay. You absolutely have to be. He is not your typical backup quarterback. He expects to be starting sometimes this season. We heard that as early as late March and April from our source that the Steelers would like to see him, possibly starting this year. And that was said. So this is if you say that the 32 starters in this league are the 32 best in the league, then Justin Fields better be 33. And so I'm confident that you have to be confident, because then if you're not confident, the team's not confident, then they're going to lose. They're going to definitely lose this game. But if those guys feel comfortable with Justin Fields in the shotgun or behind center, then no problem.
Dave, what about you? Are you confident in Justin Fields if he gets called into action?
Justin Fields, the problem is the wide range that he could give you. He can give you dynamic. He could also give you turnovers. There, you don't know exactly what you're going to get from him. If you knew you were going to get closer to his ceiling, middle to top, then that's fantastic. I have no worries about that, because we would have been wondering why wasn't he playing otherwise. The problem is when you drop down there, the guy that could turn the ball over might not have the. We saw it with the overthrow of the end zone, which also was the guy throwing, slowing down in the second preseason game. Some various things there. I don't want to have to rush Justin Fields like he was rushed in Chicago. If you don't have to, and give him more time to work on that footwork and get those things down to hopefully correct and make him the best player he can be. But at the same time, I look at the crazy potential, but could also see where, oh my, this could fall apart quickly, because you guys will. I mean, I'm sure we talk about the matchup later. Turnovers and takeaways, that margin there is going to have a big impact on this game on Sunday.
I just wouldn't want, and Mike Tomlin has spoken about, if they have to go to Justin Fields, he doesn't want to take away what he does well. And it's scramble, it's improvise. I felt like the last few years we've seen quarterbacks that have been told, look, don't screw it up. Just don't screw it up. Whatever you do, just don't turn. And they play so safe, so careful, that they also are scared to ever take that risk of making a big play. And even with Kenny Pickett at the helm, it wasn't until the fourth quarter when he's like, okay, I have no other choice but to let it loose. And that's when we saw some magic happen. I don't want to see them take that away from Justin Fields if he does get a shot, but we'll see. Yeah. Let's talk about the rest of the injury report. Dave, do you have that handy?
I do. I just had to click on the tab and I got it.
All right, go ahead. Read off the rest of the Steelers injury report first.
The Steelers injury report. All right, we have Russell Wilson was added as a new player on Thursday, limited with the calf. The other player that was added new on Thursday, which I don't like to see this, was Darnell Washington missed practice with a knee injury. Then with everything else, the other players that missed was Isaac Seumalo, who's already ruled out and missed both days. Logan Lee did not practice the last 2 days. We found out he has a calf injury. I don't think he was going to get a helmet anyway. No. So to me, he's an active list. Unless he's hurt so bad that they end up putting him on IR. I don't know. They still have until Saturday at 4:00 to do that with both him or Seumalo. Then you have Roman Wilson was limited both days, but you had Troy Fautanu, who went from limited Wednesday to full Thursday, making the same progression was Jaylen Warren and Corey Trice. They both were limited Wednesday, full Thursday.
All right. I mean, in my personal opinion, the guys that were limited and then full, this is that big test. And so unless there's a setback Friday, I think they're good to go. And I would see, my prediction is Jaylen Warren has no designation. Fautanu might be questionable. Same with Corey Trice, but Corey Trice might not have a designation. I think that I don't think there's any chance that Roman Wilson plays. Brian, what's your take on the injuries?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now just makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. If they're on the report right now at this point, I don't expect it to be any different.
Okay. Darnell Washington's the only one I'm not sure about. We'll have to see what he does on Friday if he practices at all. Dave, what do you think?
I think we're going to get a decent picture tomorrow, but we'll get the full picture Saturday at 4:00.
Yeah.
And it could even be before 4:00 because of the Steelers leaving to go to Atlanta. Sometimes they'll do their transactions before they get on the plane. That way, the right guys know to get on the plane. That are players like Seumalo going on IR? Is he? Or do you think he'll be back in less than 4 weeks? If he does not go on IR on Saturday, that's a good sign that they expect him back sooner.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't shock me if he goes on IR. Wouldn't shock me if Logan Lee goes on IR, because my goodness, if he's not practicing, you've got 8 defensive linemen. Is he really going to get a helmet anyway? You could use the roster spot otherwise if you choose, and most likely for another position. So you've got a couple guys that could go on IR. Then you look at practice squad elevations. If Rodney Williams gets called up, look for Washington to not play. If a wide receiver comes up, look for Roman Wilson to not play. That would have to happen, I think, for either of those guys to go, because I don't see the Steelers going into – I mean, it's possible they could go in with 4 wide receivers and 3 tight ends, but last year they were dressing all 4 tight ends, so that wouldn't it wouldn't shock. It would kind of surprise me if they would do that, if they're going to go, especially if they like to go with a 3 tight end set. So those are the kind of things to look for as well.
Yeah, I didn't want to spend this much time on Steelers injuries before week 1 yet. Here we are.
Yeah.
So I know that the Falcons is not as lengthy. Why don't you read that off now, Dave?
Oh yeah, they had where it was Kyle Pitts was limited yesterday, but full today. Linebacker Nate Landman. I don't even know if he's someone who is a reserve guy or a regular guy. He was limited with a quadricep both days, and new to the report on Thursday was cornerback Antonio Hamilton with a groin was limited. That's it.
Interesting.
No Kirk Cousins on the injury report of any kind.
There you go. All right, let's talk quickly about some matchups that we are looking forward to seeing. It could be offense, it could be defense, whatever you think might turn the tide one way or the other. Brian, we'll start with you. What are some matchups you want to look forward to in this week 1 matchup?
The front 7 is pretty good for Atlanta, but the middle of that front 7 is a little weaker. So the middle of that field is probably where you're going to benefit a whole heck of a lot more. So I'm looking for Pat Freiermuth across the middle, whoever's in the slot as well, across the middle against weaker inside linebackers, probably the weakest part of their defense.
Okay. Dave, what about you?
I want to see the Steelers defensive front 5. I'll even say 7. What they're doing with stopping the run and on the pass rush. That's the biggest matchup I want to see. I know Atlanta, they have some veteran guys on their offensive line. I know Kirk Cousins likes to throw the ball quickly, so I want to see what that pass rush can get going with the Steelers 3 outside guys as they rotate stuff and however they work it. See how Atlanta thinks they're going to try to handle that.
For me, I think one of the top things for me, I think it's going to be tough sledding for the Steelers running game. And I'm curious if they're going to give George Pickens targets. Can he win his matchups? Like, this is the first time we've ever said, okay, look at the wide receiving core. Like, there's no Deontay Johnson who might take attention away from him. And so most people might say, well, this means that they're going to probably look away from George Pickens. I disagree. I think they're going to still target him. He's going to get his looks down the field. Let's see how that matchup goes. Whether there's shading a Simmons or a Bates always in his direction. How do they free him up? Do they move him to the slot? Do they motion him a lot? I'm anxious to see how George Pickens makes a living in this game. Brian, any other matchups that you're looking for? Brian?
Yeah. Sorry, I was looking up something to correct somebody. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different things I want to see here. I also want to see how the offensive line opens up holes for the running game. So once again, that's Najee, maybe Jalen Warren against that stout defensive line.
Do you want to correct someone now? I mean, you looked it up, or did you not find the information needed?
I'm correcting the live chat here.
Let me guess. It's about Raheem Morris being a rookie head coach.
Yeah, he was the head coach from 2007 and 9.
Yeah, Tampa Bay.
And Tampa Bay. He came in the middle of that season, like week 5 or so. So, yeah, he's not a rookie head coach.
Okay. That's it. Okay. Anyways, Dave, any other matchups for you?
Honestly, it's week 1. It's so hard to figure that out. I don't really know what's going on as much with Atlanta, especially not see much the preseason. I don't know really what to expect. I'm not looking at matchups as much as I was in the preseason because that's what I feel like you needed to look at. Now it's just, can you execute as a unit on offense? Can you not have pre-snap penalties, or can you get the play in on time and run it and have time to even change the play at the line? Is the defense going to be ready to go or caught off guard or caught in a change or caught in, one miscommunication in the secondary and boom, you're probably giving up 7 points. So those are the kind of things I'm looking for. But when it comes to a matchup, the Steelers offensive coordinator versus the Falcons defensive coordinator, maybe strategically.
I'll go then.
Yeah, go ahead.
Zach Frazier is going to have his hands full in this game. It is a very stout defensive interior for the Atlanta Falcons, and they've got a multitude of players that can come in, and it's going to be a unique battle. It's not going to be these huge guys gosh, who's the Ravens nose tackle who's been there forever, who's just like this monster of a human and just takes up space? Is it Williams?
There was two of them, Brandon Williams and Michael Pierce.
I'm thinking of Brandon Williams.
Okay, Michael Pierce was huge too.
Yeah. But these guys are not of that kind. And so it's going to be interesting to see how Zach Frazier handles that interior unit. But I'm going to go to, when I think about the Steelers defense, and I was looking at this. I've talked to more Falcons fans in the last 48 hours than I ever have in my life. But they are saying the similar things about their wide receiving core that we are as Steeler fans. They have Drake London and a bunch of other guys, like not a lot of depth there. But that doesn't mean they don't have quality targets. Like Kyle Pitts is a tight end only by depth on the depth chart being labeled as such. He's a wide receiver. So like, how do they handle Kyle Pitts? How do they handle Bijan Robinson? How do they put Bijan Robinson in space? And how do the Steelers answer that? Is it with Patrick Queen? Is it with I hope it's not a Landon Roberts. Is it with a cornerback or a Deshaun Elliott? Or is it Peyton Wilson? I don't know. This is interesting. I look at that matchup. I think that chess match is going to be very fascinating from a Terrell Austin standpoint going against the Falcons offense. And anyone else have anything before we take a break? Brian?
I'm good.
All right, perfect. Dave, I'm assuming you're done too? All right, very good.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. If you're watching live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, we're not going anywhere. For those that are in the audio side, we're going to take a quick break here. Word from our sponsors. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. All right, Steeler fans, we are back. I want to start off the second half of the show with a super chat. Tom plays games. Tom Muir, for those that have been around long enough, he gave us $12. Said, late to the party, but Happy New Year, Steelers fans. $12 for my prediction of 12 wins. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Steelers 24, Falcons 16. Love that prediction. Thank you very much for the tip, Tom. We look forward to you contributing every single game. Hopefully a lot of wins, because he always gives $1 for every win. So let's hope we can get that dollar amount up there for Tom's donations to the Steel Curtain Network. And thank you to everyone that's ever donated their hard-earned money. You don't have to do that, but we appreciate it. All right, so let's go to the over-under game, and then we'll get to predictions, and then we'll do some trivia. This is going to be interesting, where we're throwing the preseason numbers away. Like, we are starting fresh. So Dave was touting his
right.
Dave was touting his preseason victories. Hey, it's preseason. Right?
No. Brian and I were tied. You were just really far behind.
So you two were kissing each other as a tie, and I was back there by myself. So
feels
all right.
so good, Jeff. I spooned the man. I might as well kiss him.
All right. So we have 6 categories for this week 1 game. Y'all know the rules, and in case you're new to the program, I set the line. They say over under. We all three give our take, and then we see how the game plays out, and we keep tabs all season long. So we're going to go Brian, Dave, and then I'll answer myself. That's the rotation. We're going to start off on the offensive side of the ball. Najee Harris rushing yards. This line might be a little high, but I don't know. I have it at 72.5, Brian, over under.
You know, I'm actually going to go under here, and reluctantly, I'm thinking around 68 to 72. So if you're saying what, 75?
72.5.
72.5. Yeah, I think right under.
All right. Dave.
You said rushing yards, right? Not all purpose yards.
Not total yards, rushing yards.
I had to make sure I had it written down properly. That was all. Yeah. Man, that's a good line, Jeff. That is.
Thank you.
That's a good one. So Brian goes just under. I'll go just over. I don't know that he's going to have a lot. I think he can get there based on volume is the big reason I'm going with it.
Okay. I'm going to go under as well, but not by much. I think they're going to, and a lot of this, and what sucks about this over under is that we don't know Jaylen Warren's official status yet. If he's playing, I think that's going to actually help the under cause. If he's not, I think it helps the over cause. But I'm going to go slightly under. Let's go to the next category. George Pickens receiving yards. I have this, and again, some people might say this is low. 65.5 is the number. 65.5. Brian, over under.
Man, I just don't know what the offense is going to look like to help George Pickens. So that makes this tough. Usually when I take the over with George Pickens, they throw to him twice, but he should be the number one guy here. I'm just worried about this one. I'm going to just go under just because I'm a nervous Nelly today.
All right, Dave, over under.
65.5. See if he could break one free. But, man, they got some good safety. So I don't know that he's going to get – to me, for him to get to that number, it's not – he's had 2 catches for 70 yards before,
Sure.
those kind of numbers. I don't know if Atlanta's secondary is the kind of team you can put that kind of number on. I think if he's going to get there, he's going to have a lot of receptions. And we haven't really seen this Steelers offense doing what it can really do. So I'm going to go on the safe side and say under, but I have a feeling I very well could be wrong.
I'm going to go over, and they do have a good secondary. I honestly do. And it's AJ Terrell, I think, is their number 1 cornerback who just got a big deal this past offseason. Is he going to follow him? I would think he would. But if not, okay, how do the Steelers create space? What do they do for mismatches? How do they get him away from Jesse Bates? I'm not so much worried about Justin Simmons as I am Bates. Bates is a much better, I think, all-around safety than Simmons at this stage of his career. But I'm going to take the over with George Pickens. Let's go to the next one. Pat Freiermuth targets. Pat Freiermuth targets, and this line is set at 5.5. Brian, over under.
With the way this offense looks, I'm going to have to say over.
Okay. Do you have a number in mind?
Yeah, I'm thinking 8 targets.
All right. Dave?
My number I'll go with is 7, but I'll take the over.
Okay. I was going to go slightly over with 6, but I'm going to take over. So we all take the over on that one. Let's go to the next one. We're going to the defensive side of the ball. Pittsburgh sack. So how many times do they sack an Atlanta Falcons quarterback? We'll assume it's Kirk Cousins. I have the line at 3.5. Brian, over under.
You know what? I'm actually going to go. Oh my gosh. I'm actually going to go under on this. I think they're going to get 3.
Okay. What about you, Dave?
This has so much to do with how the game plays out. I think in normal circumstances, the Cousins, they're going to try to throw the ball quick and not let the Steelers pass rush get to them. But if Pittsburgh could actually get a lead, then maybe that opens it up a little bit more. 3.5. I'll go under and say 3 as well. It might be tough, but it would not shock me if TJ Watt goes over just him. Honestly,
yeah. You're right on, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking 3, so I'm going to go under as well. And I know that's boring that we're all agreeing, but still, I unless someone like Keanu Benton can really have a difference and get Kirk Cousins off his mark on the interior, I think that the Kirk Cousins offense is going to be the Kirk Cousins offense. Quick, rhythmic. They're going to try and get the ball out of his hands. We'll see how that goes. Let's go to the next one. Pittsburgh total team rushing yards. This is unique because, well, we don't know who's going to be a quarterback, and that can change drastically. But I have the team total at 120.5. 120.5. So, Brian, you taking the over or the under?
You know what? I took a slight under, but with Najee. But I actually think we're going to – at this point, I think we're going to see Fields in this game. And I think somebody else is going to – you might have a jet sweep in there. Believe it or not, the jet sweep's not dead here. You might see Calvin Austin get an opportunity to run the ball. Of course, with Fields, Cordero Patterson. I'm actually thinking let's go ahead and take the over on this.
All right, Dave?
I'm actually going to take the under, believing that Russell Wilson is going to be the quarterback. If it's Justin Fields, I think that changes a lot. But I'm also thinking, hey, Jalen Warren's just coming back. They're going to use him, but you're not going to see the normal distribution that you would. That's why I said Harris over, but it could still be total rushing yards under.
Okay, I'm actually going to go over. I think that they're going to be able to run the football. It's going to look different. Hopefully they use all 3 backs, but I'm going to go over. Last one, Atlanta Falcons team rushing yards. I have it at 100.5. Over under, Brian.
Over, because if you get Bijan Robinson in the open field, he could reel off 40, 50 or a home run. So with I can never pronounce his name. I don't know whether his name is Algier, Agayaya. I don't know, but all I know is that guy's pretty good too. Yeah, I mean, I think 100 is, gosh, I think it was more generous what you put the over under for Pittsburgh rushing yards. They're such a good running team and they have such a good running duo I think you shortchanged them. I think everybody should go over here.
Okay, Dave.
For that reason, I'll go under.
Okay, good.
Because honestly, I think I'm not saying that Bijan Robinson won't get a bunch of yards. I think he could get as many, if not more, yards in the passing game, on the screens, on the dump offs, and the things that, as Jeff talked about on Wednesday's Let's Ride, that these are yards that are really a result of your run game, but they go down as passing and receiving yards. If you were including those kind of things, I would be pounding the over on that easy. But to me, I wouldn't be shocked, because if you look at it, this is the Patrick Queen effect that we don't know yet. Because what has actually got the Steelers in recent years more than anything is running backs in the passing game. Not as much as running backs, especially with Cam Hayward playing last year. My goodness, they averaged under 100 yards that they were giving up per game. But can you stop the running backs when you get them out in space away from that great defensive front 5/4, depending on if you're in sub package or not, and get the ball away from those guys to get them in space and get them to get the yards? I think if I was the Falcons, that would be my approach. Personally, if they don't do it, that's great. Then I think that gives the Steelers a better chance. But that's what I'm looking for. That's why I went with the under.
Dave, you took the words out of my mouth. I think Bijan Robinson is going to get his yards, but not necessarily rushing. I also think the Steelers' rush defense is a lot better than it was last year. Keanu Benton taking a big step, Larry Ogunjobi being healthy. Hell, even Isaiah Loudermilk has looked better. And how they're going to use DeMarvin Leal and how's he going to impact that? And that's with Cam Hayward and company still there. I'm going to go under. I'm actually going to go under for Atlanta rushing yards 100.5. So there you go. There's the over under. We'll see how we do. We'll update those weekly.
I told us everyone's got to take the over, and we both take the under. I love it.
We'll see. Hey,
maybe we should count that. You know what we should do? We should pick one of these each week. That's the pick. And you get double points if you get it
right. That's too much.
We're not going that deep.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to trivia, we got to do our predictions. Now, make sure that everyone knows that obviously DraftKings is kind enough to sponsor. So we're going to give you the DraftKings Sportsbook line every single week. Now, this could be adjusted. It could be adjusted dramatically. I don't know, based on the quarterback situation for the Steelers. But as we sit here right now, Thursday evening, the Steelers are getting 3.5 points according to the DraftKings Sportsbook. The money line is Steelers plus 145 odds, and the over-under is set at 42. So, Brian, we'll start with you. How do you see this game going, and what is your score prediction?
With all of the talk coming from Atlanta, the Pittsburgh Steelers do very well when it comes to having that chip on their shoulder. You've heard me talk about chips for years and years and years, gentlemen. So I'm going to go with that again because this kind of reminds me of 1992. I don't even think Jeff was born yet. But back to 1992, when it was Bill Cowher's first year with the Steelers, Sports Illustrated picked them to go 4-12, and they went 11-5 and won the division. And were actually the number one seed going into the playoffs that year. They ran into the Buffalo Bills. They ran into injuries. There were so many things going on, but they came out and went 3-0, even shocking the Houston Oilers. Now, this is a far cry from 1992. This is 32 years later. And I hope I got my math right. But with that, I'm just going to say that I feel that they have a lot to prove. I don't care who the quarterback is in the situation. And you're going to hear more in my final thoughts. We just don't know who we're going to see and how good either team is right now.
Did you say a score?
You didn't actually give a score and a pick.
Oh, well, everything I said after that whole diatribe, why am I going to say Atlanta's going to win? Pittsburgh's going to win the game. I'm picking Pittsburgh. My score, I'm just going with 24-20 every single week, probably. So 24-20.
That puts you for the over.
Yes.
That puts you the over.
All right, I'll take the over.
Okay.
Good.
Is it my turn now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I laughed on Scobro's show when my brother gave his score because he gave the score that I was going to give. Therefore, I changed it barely. I changed it to where my brother said 16-13. I'm going with 17-13. The only thing that has mattered with me, so I'm taking the under, is I've waffled back and forth on which team I'm actually going to take at 17-13. I have them both scoring 3 times. One has to kick 2 field goals, while the other gets 2 touchdowns. I've gone back and forth. There for a while, I was confident I was going to pick Atlanta. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, no, I'm going to pick Pittsburgh. Then all of a sudden, no, now Russell Wilson's hurt, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I wrote an article this morning for SteelCardNetwork.com that I said, with everything going on, I wrote this article because honestly, I sat and thought for over 3 hours trying to think of something to write about the Steelers. And I'm like, I don't want to do the polarizing hot takes. I don't want to do this, that. There's so much that has been said about this team. You know what? I just can't wait for Sunday to just shut out the noise. All the quarterbacks are great. All the quarterbacks are terrible. All the defense is old. All the defense is great. It's the highest paid. It's the lowest paid. Shut out all that and enjoy a Pittsburgh Steelers football game. Just enjoy the game. We haven't had a game. Make sure no matter how you feel about it, enjoy the game. Because if you're not going to enjoy the game, at least at kickoff, at least when the ball was kicked off, take that in and have it be a good moment, or else it's not worth it. And for that reason, I want to continue that joy. So therefore, I am taking the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-13.
Okay. When this line went to 3.5 and the Steelers are getting 3.5, shoot, take those points and place your bet, in my opinion. Because even if the Steelers lose this game, I don't think they're getting blown out. I think it would be within a field goal anyways, but I don't think they're going to lose this game. And yes, I'm a homer. Yes, I pick the Steelers every week. That doesn't matter. What matters is that I see the Steelers making enough plays. And by the way, I think Minkah Fitzpatrick impacts this game more than people think. I've said this before. I said this on the podcast last night with the Falcons crew. Deshaun Elliott's presence is going to be more important than people think. Not because he's going to be making all these plays. Think about what Terrell Edmonds did. He was there and allowed Minkah to do his thing. I see Minkah Fitzpatrick. He did not have a turnover last season. I think it's the first time in his career he didn't have a turnover. He was injury plagued, but still.
I think it was the first time since, did they say middle school or early high school?
Maybe.
That he didn't have to take away.
I think in utero.
I think he gets that monkey off his back early against Kirk Cousins, or in some way, I think he impacts this game. So does TJ Watt. The defense sets up the offense. The offense takes advantage. Steelers win this game 23-20. 23-20. I know that is just barely the over on that line. It's just an incredible line. And hey, if you're brave, plus 145 odds on the Steelers on the money line, I like that too. So,
I already did that. I did it last night. When I saw it went up to 3.5, I'm like, I'm getting on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
So
Tuesday night, but yeah. Yep.
Yeah, if people want to fire away in the live chat and let us know your predictions, that'd be awesome. If not, that's fine. We have some trivia. Brian, do you have trivia tonight?
It's not like Scobro where we're going to bring them all up and read them.
Yeah, I have a trivia question, and it's going to be a rather quick one here. I want to bring up Daniel Red, who mentioned, I'm with you, Bad, but I see an 11-11 tie, LOL. So it has nothing to do with that 11-11. It has to do with ties. Now, there were 3 games in a row that the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Atlanta Falcons tied. Could you tell me those years? And could you tell me the 4 quarterbacks in those 3 games that played a majority of the time? One was because of an injury.
Well, 2002, wasn't that was Tommy Maddox, wasn't it?
Yes, and I was there.
Yeah, and I could tell you all about that game, but that was
was the tie.
2006,
they lost in overtime by 3 points. Ben Roethlisberger started the game.
He left.
Charlie Batch came in the third quarter.
Hines Ward scored without a shoe.
Scored without a shoe. Hines Ward had a ton, like 170 some yards, 3 touchdowns. The Falcons went for a kick inside of a minute, and it wasn't Anderson. It was the other guy that was doing the kickoffs, and first he made it, but the Steelers had called timeout. Then he missed it, but Troy got called for a penalty. So then they bring Anderson on, and he misses it. Then the Steelers have the ball, get the ball down to the 33, and go to down it, and Nate Washington wasn't completely set, and the clock ends, and the offense never touches the ball again. I know all this. Oh, and the other one was it was overtime in 2010, where they won 15.
Troy Polamalu picked off Matt Ryan that one, didn't they?
Yeah. Who was the quarterback of that one? That was week 1, 2010. Who started? Who was it?
That would have been. That would have been Dennis Dixon, I think.
Was that the Dennis Dixon game?
It was Dennis Dixon.
Yep. And I'm sorry that I know all this because it was actually my trivia tonight.
Nice. Oh, hey, well, 2 birds in 1 stone. Dennis Dixon got hurt, I believe, in week 2 in Tampa. That was the game he left. That was the game that Brett Kiesel had the pick 6 down in Tampa Bay.
Yes.
I believe that was week 2 of that season.
Well, because Atlanta, that was week 1 that they won that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I can help you out with your trivia. I hope I ruined your trivia.
More to it than that. But that was all that stuff that I looked up. I had all those things and everything to tell you about.
I was like, dang, Dave knew about the 33-yard line. Like, I remember a lot about that game, but I don't know the 33-yard line.
Who scored the winning touchdown in that Dennis Dixon game? It was a 50-yarder.
No, I didn't look up that one because that one was at home. So I don't have. Wait, was that the Mendenhall where he busted it off?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I believe I thought that wasn't in Atlanta. No, I guess it was at home.
No, that was at home.
Yeah. Mendenhall had a 50-yard run. There you go.
Yeah.
This is funny because I was going to, after trivia, talk about some of the greatest memories of Falcons Steelers, and we're doing this through trivia. So this is great. All right, Dave, go ahead and finish your trivia.
I expect Brian to get this now because this was my ultimate question, but that's why I looked up all that other stuff as part of it. When was the last time the Pittsburgh Steelers lost in regulation in Atlanta?
The only other time they only lost twice to Atlanta, and that was correct. 1970.
That was 1970. And my question was going to be, because what did the 2 losses in Atlanta have in common? Thinking quarterback.
The quarterback was knocked out of the game because Michael Vick didn't play in 1970. No. So I would say because the Steelers starting quarterback was knocked out of the game.
I don't know if he was knocked out or benched. I can't tell you for sure, but the quarterback that started was not the quarterback that finished, because the quarterback that started that game in 1970 was December 13th, my mother's birthday in 1970, was
Terry Hanratty.
That was Hanratty that started that game, but Bradshaw finished it. And the thing that's terrible is combined, they threw 5 interceptions.
Wow.
Yikes.
3 from Hanratty and 2 from Bradshaw. I mean, my goodness. Terry Bradshaw was 3 of 12 for 30 yards, 2 interceptions, and 2 sacks in that game.
So you're telling me, Dave, the quarterback
14-yard run.
So you're telling me, Dave, the quarterback play was Terry-able.
Bad joke.
All right. That's a good transition.
We want to go dad jokes. That's Let's Ride on Wednesdays.
Yes. Steeler fan 69.
That's
He's the
right.
one that always.
Hopefully, we don't have to worry about. They're like, oh, so are you saying that the Steelers are going to have 2 quarterbacks playing? Well, that's not outside of the possibility. But my thing is, those were both losses. Let's not worry about that, because the Steelers have won an awful lot of games in Atlanta in the past, even though they don't play them all that often.
All right. Good stuff, guys. Let's do some final thoughts. Brian, what's up?
All right. So, again, I know I've been talking about this since preseason started. Preseason, you're not seeing the real thing. We're getting ready to see the real thing. Everybody's trying to say that this team is terrible. Everybody's trying to say how the quarterback position is awful. But I listened to Dave Schofield tonight talk about Mr. Cousins, how he's coming off an injury and older. And everybody in Atlanta is talking about how this is a home run, a slam dunk, but the one thing it's not is a touchdown. So I'm going to say this. I actually stand behind the way the Steelers have prepared and how I feel that they prepared, and how coach and other people, my nephew Noah, who was there twice in preseason, and how they looked in preseason, and how a guy like Broderick Jones looked not in preseason, but looked in training camp. I meant training camp for all of these guys, but how how he looked in training camp, Broderick Jones, against Rousseau, and then turned around and had a bad game, but he looked very good that Thursday, 2 days before that game. So all I'm saying here is we can talk about how bad that we think that the Steelers are, but we're not going to know until the real Pittsburgh Steelers please stand up. And the guy who sang that was Eminem. I'm hoping it's WW, win-win.
All right, Dave, final thoughts.
All right, well, Brian didn't go on for 5 minutes, so maybe I will this time, because I have a lot to say. But no, that I've actually not in Atlanta. I've seen the Steelers face the Falcons before. That was one of those games that my brother and I attended together in Pittsburgh. That one was crazy. That was that 41-17 game. And something I remember that frustrated me with that game was right before the half, I thought Ben Roethlisberger was trying to just throw the ball away. And here he was throwing it up for grabs in the end zone. It took points and, took the chance to have points right before the half, took that away. But the Steelers still won that one handily. I don't know that they would have the same kind of luxury in this game. I really think it's going to be what I alluded to earlier. Whoever wins the turnover margin in this game is going to have a very big advantage. I look for that to be the key statistic outside of points on the board. Point differential is the turnover differential. I think that's going to really play into the flow of the game. It could even take a game that could be a blowout for one team or the other and make it closer because of them not taking care of the football. So I think it's going to show a lot. But when you feel about you get the feeling about the Pittsburgh Steelers, how confident are you? Well, last year going into week one, it was crazy. It was the Steelers had 2 years in a row gone on the road and upset teams that were Super Bowl favorites, not like the favorites, but teams that were in the Super Bowl discussion. They upset them on the road. And then last year, between that and how the offense was during the preseason, there was confidence just oozing out of Steelers Nation all over the place. So much so when they lost that game, what did we have going on here on the post-game show in the live chat? People saying their season's over after this one. Okay, please don't do that this year. But the confidence isn't there because you're coming off of the Steelers laying an egg in the first week of the season last year. The Steelers not even winning a game in the preseason. You don't have that same kind of confidence necessarily that you feel that you have a lot to back it up. That doesn't mean you can't be confident. It doesn't mean that you can say, hey, the Steelers offense is going to look different. I really think that they can win this game. Absolutely, you can feel that way. But it's a lot more cautiously optimistic than what it was last year. I think that's a better way to look at things. And I just want to remind people once again, because maybe it's because I keep saying it is why people in the comments of our videos keep saying otherwise. This is not an upset if the Steelers lose this game. You can't get upset when you're the underdog. The Steelers are it's now even more than the general three home points that you have going on here. So the Steelers can come out here. I think it's going to be a close game. I really do. But more than anything, I want to enjoy it. I know the Steelers can frustrate me. They can bring me joy. They can bring me pain. But you know what? They'll bring me back to my Steelers family here after the game. So make sure you join us on the postgame show.
All right, I want to bring attention. Dave and I talk about writing for SteelCurtainNetwork.com. That is our website, so give us a check there. SteelCurtainNetwork.com. I've got a lot of good written content for you right there every single day. Make sure you check out all of our podcasts. A great preview. If you want to get not just this preview, but you want to get another primer for the game, check out Let's Ride on Friday morning, where we have Behind Enemy Lines, as well as the All Bets Are Off segment with Jeremy Jerome Betts. Make sure you check us out. All of our shows, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, wherever you get your social media fix. Search Steel Curtain Network and you'll find us. All right, guys, that does it. That's it. We'll see you after the game. Dave, why don't you send us out like we always do?
Hey.
We'll see you in the post-game show. Take it easy. Go Steelers.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.